Hi, so I'm going to do something slightly different in this video. I'm going to be talking about two books. The first is The Feminine Mystique by Friedan, and then the second is The Vagenda by Baxter and Rhiannon Cosslett. The reason I'm talking about both of these books together is that they're both feminist books, but The Feminine Mystique is older. It was written in the 50s or 60s, kind of that era, and The Vagenda is very, very recent and was published last year. So I think it'd be interesting to sort of talk about one and then the other and kind of see how they sit side by side. So first I'm going to talk about The Feminine Mystique. It was a really, really interesting book, and I was really pleased to finally get around to reading it because it's kind of part of the backbone of what we recognise as modern feminism. So I think it's a really important text to read, and obviously some of it is very out of date, which is to be expected, but there are still some issues that are very relevant, and I think that's quite poignant and quite pressing that this book that was written, 60 years ago is still relevant now. So clearly things are getting better, but maybe not as best, they're not as better as we think. That's a very poorly constructed sentence. I apologise. It was a really easy book to read as well, which I liked. It wasn't very academic. I felt that it was quite accessible for everyone. So in that sense, it was really useful. What was particularly interesting was how inherently American the book was. Friedan was an American woman. Ironically, she was a housewife. And actually, the whole book is arguing against housewives and how women can do what they want. So there's a little bit of hypocrisy there. But I also think she's trying to say you can do both. Women can do both, and it's a choice. But it was really interesting to see how these inherently American issues translated to Britain and to a British audience. And actually, I thought it translated quite well. You could generally see what was trying to be said, and you could think of ways over here that it was similar. And it was a really good mix of facts and opinions. So she talked to lots of women, and then she made sure that you knew when it was her opinion, and then when it was facts and figures. So that was good. And then we fast forward, 50, 60 years, and we have The Vagenda. You can tell just by the title that we've come forward in time. The full title of the book is The Vagenda, a Zero Tolerance Guide to the Media. So it's talking about women in the media. And the book is incredibly modern, and it's incredibly engaging. It was written by young women for young women. So it's very much about my generation of women, women in their late teens, early 20s, even up to sort of late 20s, I would say, that are kind of in this particular wave of academia, that are very entrenched in this particular wave of feminism. And it's not an academic book, so it's not academic language, so it's so easy to read, and it made me laugh. They're very much trying to get you to engage, and I laughed out loud when I was reading this book, and it was such a good read and such a fun read. And I think part of that is that it comes from a blog. So the two girls, Holly and Rhiannon, started a blog when they were at uni. They were reading fashion magazines and doing all this stuff, and they said they would laugh. And at first that laughter was pure humour. And then they realised that actually they were laughing because they were incredibly uncomfortable with the way things were and what they were being shown and what they were being forced to see in fashion magazines and on television and advertising and in films and all that kind of stuff. So they started this blog to talk about it more than anything, and then it progressed and it became this book. And to an extent, I feel like it's made feminism cool again. I really don't like saying that at all. I think it's really cliched and contrived, but I feel a little bit that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to say to young women, you can be a feminist, and that's an okay thing to be, and that doesn't mean you can't like fashion, and that doesn't mean you can't read fashion magazines or watch chick flicks. You can do those things. You just have to be aware of the issues. And I think that's really important. So again, like, the issues are very modern, they're very relevant, and I would implore every single one of you to go and read this book. Like, 100%, it is well worth your time. That's all I can say, because it's fantastic. I love it. And I think when you put the two books side by side, then actually I think they're quite similar. They're tackling issues that real women were facing, you know, middle class women, working class women, the everyday issues that they faced. So while in the 50s and 60s in America, this was, you know, being chained to the kitchen sink and being expected to stay at home all day and bake apple pie and, you know, iron the curtains or all those things. Whereas now it's that you're expected to be skinny and pretty in Hollywood all the time. So I think actually that they're very similar books in that sense, but they're very different in the way that the issues that they tackle are very different. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say on this. So I will see you again soon. Bye!